Hey, Dads, today we've got with us Jeff Steiner, who's Executive Director of DADS Resource Center out of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, David.
It's my pleasure, man. As we're ramping up towards Father's Day, there's so much to talk about. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because the work you guys are doing in Pennsylvania. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what do you see as today's big problems that are facing fathers? And then how is DADS Resource Center addressing those? So what would you say is the number one problem dads are facing these days?
Uh, the avalanche of problems, honestly,
Yeah.
particularly in the family courts. It's just from start to finish, it's extraordinarily challenging for fathers. And one of the things, so the Dad's Resource Center was founded by Dr. Joel N. Myers, who is the founder and CEO of AccuWeather. And Joel had went through some things, and he had the resources and capacity to be able to muscle through everything and get his situation squared away. And once he did, he thought, you know what, I need to put something in place for fathers who don't have my ability to be able to work through these things. And so that's why he established the Dad's Resource Center in 2015 and then brought me on board. And we've worked together to build the Dad's Resource Center up. And I wear a lot of different hats. I manage the organization. We do some high-level advocacy within the state of Pennsylvania. And media and things like this to be able to get the word out. But my first career was as a family counselor, and I'm trained and skilled. So I do mentoring and coaching with fathers who are going through these issues. We've had over 250 fathers reach out to us, desperate to be in the lives of their children, but can't, And when you're dealing in these situations, none of us are perfect, right? I'm not a perfect dad,
Guaranteed.
right?
Guaranteed.
Absolutely, but some of these guys, I'm like, how in the world? Because they're just really incredible guys. Some people are somewhat flawed. But I've been to court hearings in 14 different counties here in Pennsylvania. I've been in a lot of courtrooms and seen a lot of judges, and then people have shared things with me. And I
Right.
see, again, start to finish, the challenges that they face. And it's kind of hard to prioritize one thing over the other. But there is just a general sense of either a favoritism towards mothers or a lack of appreciation for fathers in the importance that they play in the lives of their children. Now, flat out, research shows children do better in life when they have both parents actively involved in their lives. Mothers
Sure.
and fathers give different but equally important things to their sons and daughters, and they have the best chance of being successful in life if they have both their mother and father actively involved and engaged in their upbringing. Now, we do know, Annie A. Casey Foundation, 34% of children in the United States, that's over 23 million, live in separated families, right?
Wow.
So the
Wow.
reality is 1/3 of our children are living in separated families. A lot of these people work things out on their own. Some can't. And then those who really have issues end up in the family court system.
Right.
Um,
My
we
world.
also Pew Research found that of those children living in separated families, 71% live with their mothers, which
Right.
means 29% live with their fathers. They're either way, they're disadvantaged. But when you're in a situation where a father is getting completely cut out of the lives of their children, that's just incredibly detrimental to them when they really need the active support of both parents from the outset. So all of this is important because fathers in these situations are aggrieved parties, but the victims are their children. They're the ones who
Yeah.
ultimately suffer when their fathers, who are able, willing, dying to be in the life of their children, aren't able to be. The children are the ones who suffer significantly. And we should care about men as human beings and their personal experiences and what is fair and what is just. But if you can't do that, at the very least, you need to understand the downstream effect that it has on children. So I know I said that's kind of my opening to things here. So I
Sure.
mean,
Well,
maybe you
it's
want to drill
interesting.
down on some
You said a
specific.
couple really interesting things that I want to follow up on, not the least of which is, let's recognize that of those children, 49% of them are boys who will be men. And if they're not getting the proper training today, we're going to see that in 10, 20, 30 years down the road. in their relationships, in their parenting, and how they perform in the world. So that's a huge factor. The other thing, I wanted to follow up on with you is this. You said that dads are not appreciated in family court. And the reason why that's really interesting to me is twofold. One, last night I was at a dinner and I was talking to a couple judges, and I said, I'm doing this boot camp. I'm teaching dads how to represent themselves in family court. What's the one thing you would want most dads to know going into court that could help them and would help you make a decision? And what they said was, they both said the same thing. Dads come in, they say, I'm a great dad, but they don't know the specifics. They don't tell me how well they are as a good dad. They don't tell me they know the schools, the teachers, the doctors, the favorite likes, the how to discipline, all the stuff that actually makes them a great dad. And I was shocked on the one hand that the judges are recognizing that that's the problem. Great. Means I'm not totally insane here. My boot camp is going in the right direction. But also the level of how often that happens. So that's the thing I'm seeing from in my cases and with my judges. What are you seeing is how dads are not being appreciated?
Well, I think what sometimes, so either a father has an attorney and legal representation or they don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you have a lawyer, that then is on the lawyer, right? If the lawyer isn't the one making those cases, right?
100%.
So, but fathers, and we had this pre-discussion about this, right? Most of them, my fathers are like, I've never been in the legal system. I've never had to deal with, right? So these are people who've, they have no familiarity whatsoever with the mechanics and everything that goes on with courts. And so they get overwhelmed and they get caught up in the storyline. And I think this is something I try to help them with. I'm sure you do. The storyline isn't what the judges want to hear, right? You got to focus. But like men tend to be justice based and what is right and what is wrong based. So they kind of sometimes get hung up on these other things. I'm like, okay, well, and so they don't have the capacity in a nuanced way to be able to sell themselves, I guess, in the way that you're saying when they're
100%.
representing themselves.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like so often they want to like go in and, the judge wants to know there's a beach, but dads want to be like, well, there's every grain of sand on the beach. And the judge doesn't care. He doesn't want to know about what happened on your second date and how she was telegraphing that she was control. Not relevant. Judge wants to know what's going on today, right now. So I definitely see that element. What's Dad's Resource doing these days to help fathers?
Okay, again, mentoring and coaching for fathers who are going through it. Um, Here in Pennsylvania, we have the 16 standards that should be considered when judges make decisions on custody matters. Most states have something along those lines. I try to help go through those with fathers, and I'll sit down with them even and this one and this one, and what's your thoughts on this and this and this and this. So to help them be able to use those to be able to think about and prepare for that. For fathers who are representing themselves, you're now a new resource I connect them with. We talked about our friend in the other side of the state here. I direct them towards him because he helps people in that way. So the different resources of fathers are trying to represent themselves, trying to help them weed through picking an attorney. Because this is another interesting conversation. Talking to someone last week about judges and the fact that they want people to represent themselves. And a judge had made a comment that, good lawyers hire good lawyers to represent them. I don't understand why people don't have the same common sense. Well, here's the reality to that. Lawyers can do that for two reasons. They have money,
Right.
but they also know lawyers and they know what the good lawyers are. And
Right.
lawyers are like policemen, teachers, everything else. You got the A, B, C, D, E team. You got 20% who are really good, 20 are good, 20 are average, 20 are below average, and 20 shouldn't be doing it at all. And if you got someone who isn't in the legal community, they don't know, right? And even if they do their due diligence, they still don't know. So a lot of times people have a finite amount of money that they can put towards this. And as you know, between paying for the attorney, paying for legal filings, paying for a guardian ad litem, paying for a custody evaluator, paying for supervised visits, like just the psychological evaluations, like all the money that goes into this. A father, like the average person can maybe put 10, 15,000 toward this, and it's gone in a heartbeat. They don't get anything most of the time.
Right.
And then they're
Absolutely.
left the pro se, and the judge is like, why don't you have an attorney? Well, this is why. And so that's one, when you say one of the biggest challenges that fathers face, at the beginning, that's probably the biggest thing. Like I used to say, if you go to court and the mother has a lawyer and you're going to a gunfight with a plastic sport, right? Which is true in theory, but even sometimes your
No,
gun
it's
is a plastic
very
sport
true.
for
You're
this.
lucky to have the spork. Some of these guys.
Yeah. So, that, and then issues with guardian ad litems, how to handle that when you're in a disadvantage with a guardian ad litem who's involved.
Okay.
Misuse of PFAs to gain advantage in custody situations.
Hold on, what's a PFA?
Okay, so here in Pennsylvania, PFA is a protection from abuse order.
Okay, so other places call it restraining orders or order of protection. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And as you know, judges, rightfully, right? Judges need to be concerned about the safety of people, particularly women and children, right?
Sure.
So we all support that, right? And they justifiably are very cautious when they're faced with being able to having a motion or a request to get a PFA or a restraining order or something along those lines. Most times they will award a temporary one before you
Right.
can have the actual hearing for all the evidence and all that that's involved. But then, as you know, when that happens, if children are involved, that automatically and definitively, most times constrains the contact that a parent can have with the other child.
Yep.
And then even when it's lifted, sometimes it doesn't get put back. And so, and it's leveraged against what we see here in Pennsylvania. I'm sure this isn't uncommon. Is even when you have an attorney, I have sat in courtrooms and watched this unfold. A dad tells me, okay, my hearing for my PFA is at 9 o'clock this morning. So I get there 8:30. We're talking. The attorney shows up like 5 of 9, goes, talks to the other attorney. It's 9. They go talk to the judge. Then they come out and they say, well, this is what we've agreed to. Wait, what? If you agree to this, they'll drop the PFA. And then the attorney sidebars with his client, and the client's like, well, no, I don't want to give up my custody. I don't want to give this up. Well, you need to know, I don't know how this is going to go. If we go in and have this hearing, they could approve the PFA. Like, so
Right.
this is, when you talk about the minds that fathers walk into, this is one I have personally observed countless times.
Yeah. The abuse of that process of using the protection orders to gain leverage in negotiations is rampant. And I literally this morning just read a declaration from a mother who's complaining about her former lawyer who manipulated her and lied to her and told her to do all these things. And that's why she got the restraining order. And that's why she was doing all this stuff. And I'm just reading it. I'm like, this is the playbook. This is the playbook that firm uses in all of their cases. And the thing is that I know that. I know going in what the playbook is going to be. I know if you have a daughter that is under 3, the number one allegation that's going to be made against you is this. Mom is going to say, and I quote, I am afraid dad is fingering the baby when he's changing the diaper.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't say dad's doing that. Doesn't say there's any evidence of that.
Okay.
Because what
Right.
that's really saying is, I am afraid.
Right. Yep.
It's my fear that might be happening. And that's enough to drive the restraining order. Because what judge is going to be like, no. And then it actually happens. And now you're the judge that let a child molester have access to his kid. Right? Like no judge wants to do that. But that's the way this stuff is written. And mom's going to say, well, I never said he did it. I was just afraid that he might. Like, okay.
I have not heard that one. I've heard a lot of horrible things. I have not heard that. Like I've heard accusations of child sexual abuse on fathers. That's happened, but not that specific one.
I get that
What?
one.
And
regularly.
as you know, so what does that do? They got to go to children and youth services.
Right.
They need to do an investigation. Then
Absolutely.
you're going to have to get a psychological. Then you're not going to have any contact with the children,
And
right?
you're
That
probably
kicks
going to
off the
need a
whole.
second lawyer, because if you've hired me to handle the divorce stuff, I don't touch DCFS, Department of Child and Family Services. It's the wild, wild west. They're all nuts. It's a crazy system, different rules. Those judges play by their own game plan. I don't go near that. I have to refer that out to somebody, because I would be incompetent in that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So you're now automatically at 2 lawyers just to get started. And then if somebody decides like, oh, we need minors counsel or guardian ad litem, then that's 3 lawyers plus her lawyers, 4 lawyers. It's crazy the way this stuff gets blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
All for what? Because what's really driving all of this? Why is mom really doing this? Is it she really wants control? Could be. Is it really for child support? Because the more custody you have, the more child support you get? Most likely. That's the most likely driver in my experience of why this stuff happens. It's not that there's a real risk that dads are really that abusive. Those days are long gone for the majority of these cases. Not to say they don't exist, because I've had clients who were physically abusive. They were bad guys. But the majority of them, it's normal arguing. Majority of the stuff is just we're fighting to get custody, to gain an advantage in the child custody, to get more child support. And that's the sad part for me, because we're breaking up families over this.
Yeah, so that's fathers who get blindsided by it. And again, you may not be an awesome husband. You could be oblivious, right? Whatever is going on there. But fathers who get blindsided by this while a mother's making business decisions, right? That's what I refer to it as. They're making business decisions. And again, it needs to be said, there are absolutely situations when men are the problem, when the men are the bad guys. So that exists. We're not saying, but in the situations that we're talking about specifically, these scenarios, a guy gets blindsided, a mother's making business decisions along the line and then next thing you know, you're upside down trying to dig out of this hole made of sand with all of these types of things.
And here's the thing, I actually did not plan this one. It's just, I've got a whole slew of different cups. This one in particular says, Mother Teresa didn't marry the devil.
Okay.
And it's a phrase we use in family court a lot, because mom comes in and is like, I'm the angel. I'm perfect. I never do anything wrong. I'm Mother Teresa. And he's this horrible, abusive, alcoholic, sex maniac, pervert, like blah, 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 blah. And I'm just looking at that like, wait, you dated the guy, you maybe married him, but you definitely decided to have a child with him. And now he's suddenly the worst guy on the planet. Like, what does that say about your judgment and ability to discern? Maybe the problem is with you, because if you're making such a bad miscalculation about who you're choosing to relate with, maybe you shouldn't be in charge of that child. Or are you just lying? Well, we know what the reality is. It's not a lie, it's an exaggeration.
So 2 things. So sometimes it's business decisions. I see something with this that is visceral to me with a lot of the fathers where, and the courts and the people within the courts enable or play a role in this too, where sometimes it's just about trying to beat the father up enough so that he packs up and goes away. That absolutely,
Guaranteed.
right? That's what they want to do, beat you down so that you just walk away. But the other thing is this whole thing of alienation. So you see these situations along the lines of what you're talking about, where a father barely gets every other week or might be on supervised visits, and he's the alienator, right?
Right.
And I'm like, wait, how can he
How
be
is
the
that
alienator?
possible?
She's, and courts take that. And I'm just like that. Those are the times when I need to control myself in a courtroom. Like,
dude, I cannot tell you how many times I've sat in the audience and watched a father get destroyed by the other side, either mom or mom's lawyer. And I just wanted to like leap up there and grab the guy and be like, would you fucking say this? But I can't do it. But that's why I created Dad's Law School, and that's why I'm doing the boot camp, because it's the only way I can teach dad. That's what the point of the podcast and the TikToks and YouTubes is. to get the message out. Same reason like Dad's Resource Center exists, to help. So you talked about mentoring and coaching. What's that relationship look like? Is this like a once a week we get together for an hour on Zoom, or is this we have group sessions? Is this I'm spending $500 a week for you guys, or is it $500 a month? Like, tell me about how those programs work for you.
Well, so again, my background is as a family counselor, and I'm an empathetic guy. I can feel people and I can listen. That's my superpower, is listening. And so first off, hear their stories. And that means a lot because men have a hard time asking for help or talking to people about things.
Yep.
And so just having someone who gets it and knows it, and then will listen to them and not judge them, right? And just be able to unload, right? And honestly, I've had a couple of these conversations this week with fathers who are so upside down. What I tell them is you got to work your short, medium, and long-term goals at the same time, right? So this judge has him there's a PFA in a different state on him. The judge will not even allow him to start working on supervised visits until he's off of probation, right?
Right.
Which is like 2 years. But now he's saying his parole officer is telling him that he's done well. He has no idea why we're doing this. So he's going to go early to the judge and say, he's done enough. I'm recommending he gets off. At that point, he can then initiate the process of having the custody evaluator in this state, that process. So that I'm like, that's your short-term goals, is get off of probation, then kick into place this thing where you can be evaluated to be able to start to have contact with their child. Because and he had no abuse of the children. There's nothing he did to the child or anything like that. He hasn't seen a child in a year and a half since this order. Like, he's dying. So and she's young enough, and I got to give him that speech of, you got time, right? So your short-term goals are there. Your intermediate goals are trying to start to get into the visits. And then once you can maybe break through, start to re-engage this relationship with your daughter moving forward. So it's a triage component for a lot of those people who are just hopeless and there's nothing that can be done in the short term with them. But so I hear them out and I hear their story and I take their information. Some of them I talk to more regularly. Sometimes it's texting, right? Emails. Everyone has their different avenues of communicating. I'll attend court hearings if they ask me to, like I offer, if I can get to them. And then I connect them with the different resources that I'm aware of locally or nationally. I do some matchmaking with fathers. So if there's a father who is in the Naval Reserves, and I know a father, I kind of put them together, that type of thing. And then I also give them opportunities because most of the fathers say, I want this to mean something. I want to do something so that other people don't have to go through this. So I give people the opportunities as much as what I can to do something, to have them feel as though they're helping others or being part of make it so that it isn't as bad for other people. So it's fluid, and it's different for each father in terms of their need and how much help I can and good I can be for them.
Okay. Does this cost them anything? How does this get paid for?
It doesn't. The nonprofit was founded by Dr. Myers and another father who'd been through this, and they're funding the organization. We've tried for funding in other ways, but people don't. Everything for fathers is responsible fatherhood, right?
Right. Right.
You know, and so, but we're still trying to. What I want to do is what I do, create a position for that and have it be more dedicated and more time intensive to help more fathers in our area and then expand on that in other areas.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking to do and how we're looking to evolve as an organization. But there's no charge to our fathers to the organization. If they want to make some sort of a donation, obviously we take it.
Sure.
But to this point, there's no fee for what, the mentoring and the coaching.
That's awesome. What an amazing organization that is, because everybody dealing with dads is looking to like have them at least contribute something. It's brutal. It's a really brutal system.
And it's, I, yeah, it's overwhelming. And it's unfair. And I'm sorry, I'm just at a loss of words right at the moment. So
No, I understand because it is a very unfair system, and you know nobody wants to talk about overhauling the system. Like I've got my own ideas on how to overhaul the system, and they're not popular with a lot of people because I say things like, I don't believe move-aways are generally a good thing. Like I think moving away should be a really high standard. Like if you had a child with somebody and you picked a location, that's where you should be. Like that father should have access to that child on a regular basis. And when you want to move that kid from Los Angeles to like say Kansas and then give dad like, 2 weeks in the summer, or okay, we'll give him 3 because he doesn't have the rest of the year. Like, what the hell is that? Like, that's not fair. I think that we should have equal shared parenting off the hook, like right from the get go. That should just be starting what we're going to deal with. And unless there's actual physical abuse, that should be something that we deal with. But if it's just this garden variety, oh, they're mean and abusive, like get over it. You pick them. Like, let's get real here.
I believe I'm not I don't have a law degree. I'm not an attorney, right? I'm just, a person. But I think they the way it's set up in its splinters, and every year you add something new, because this supervised visit thing wasn't as prevalent as it was 5-10 years ago.
Oh
But
yeah.
now this rat hole supervised, it's gotten worse. And then custody evaluators and this and this. So it just keeps adding on the way, instead of judges saying, look, the first factor in Pennsylvania is which parent is going to do the best job of ensuring the other parent is able to be in the life of their child. That's the first
Right.
factor. It probably is in most states. To me, start there and stick there and set the expectation at the outset. Look, you guys got to prove to me that you're going to work with the other person. Be more assertive instead of saying, oh, well, okay, this and that, and let things spin out of control. Judges could be a lot more assertive with these things, reel these things in and say, this is what's best for kids. We know that. That's what we're working towards. And if you're not working toward that on your end, then you're the problem. They could do that, but they don't.
You're 100%. I completely agree with you on that one. But I think there's a reason for that.
Okay.
And that is that most judges don't get the training that they need. They don't get the psychological background training. They don't get family dynamics. They don't get early childhood development. They get evidence, they get law, and they have to figure the rest of this out. And the problem is that as they're trying to figure it out, they're being manipulated by borderline moms and narcissistic dads and really good liars because, hey, a really good lie is a hard thing to fight. I've been doing it for 25 years. And when mom comes in and is a really good liar, it's a difficult fight. Like a really good liar is probably going to win because they have no ethics.
Yeah, yeah,
They
right,
will
right.
say
I was gonna
anything.
say.
Right? So you're playing like you're trying to box with somebody who's willing to go full on global thermonuclear war. Who's going to win? Like it's a real clear battle when that happens. And so as a consequence, these judges are fumbling through trying to figure it out. And it takes them 2-3 years to figure out, like, oh, that's what a borderline looks like. Oh, that's what a narcissist looks like. Now I need to have that evaluate the weight I give to their credibility, because a borderline is going to say one thing, but it's going to mean something completely different. Borderlines
Okay.
like narcissists project. They're projecting what they're doing onto the other person. And the judge believes that because she's crying, the lip is quivering, and she's got a very sad story, and it just pulls on all of those heartstrings of like mom, dad, apple pie, and Chevrolet. And like the way we lionize moms and put them up on pedestals, like who wants to take a mom away from her kid? Well, particularly if she's crying, but they're not seeing through the lie until they get 2, 3, 4, 5 years experience in this and learn that they can do that. So I think part of it is we just have to do a better job training them.
I take that point and I recognize that. Like the law, the courts aren't made to do this. It's different from any other really, even criminal law. It's
Yeah.
just it's a whole different thing. So I take your point on that. The one thing I try to communicate though is the best thing you can do for mothers is support fatherhood, right?
Mhm.
Parenting is a two-person job. There's 24 hours in a day. If they sleep 8 hours, you got two 8-hour shifts, right?
Right.
Like like, and so if you really want to help moms, you want to have fathers there to support them, right? To be there for them, to carry the load. So, that kind of is counterintuitive. Okay, we want to help the moms, but get the dads, let them take the burden off of the mothers, especially if they want to. And they're like,
Right.
I want to do it. So,
Yeah. But instead, we say, you didn't fight hard enough. Instead of asking the question of, like, why do you have to fight at all? Why should you have to fight to see your kids? Like, unless you're a registered sex offender or have a history of physical abuse, like, substance abuse, mental health, like the big issues, why do you have to fight? If you're having to fight, there's a reason. And the reason is probably somebody is a borderline in that relationship. And it's generally not the dad if he's having to fight. Because if he wasn't having to fight, he would have been doing the manipulation and playing the game the other way around. It would be mom having to fight to get custody, which rarely happens.
So I can say something about that in my many conversations with fathers. Sometimes a father can play it all out, right? I always tell them two things. No one knows mom better than you do. Follow your gut, right? No,
Right.
a lot of times they can play it out and they know how the system is. And there are fathers who will just throw the towel in at the very beginning as an act of love for their children to help avoid the turmoil and the fighting. Like that happens, right?
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Right. So, it's a decision they got to make. And you can't, every man, every father, I mean, they got to do what they believe is what is right and what's in their heart. And sometimes some of them are just like, I'm not going to do that to them. Part of it may be that they don't want to deal with it, but genuinely, I don't want my children to be involved in all this back and forth. I'm just going to go with the flow and let things play out how they play out.
And that will be used against them. That will be weaponized by mom, that your dad doesn't care. He didn't fight for you. He's not around enough. I have to carry all this weight. It's all on me. I'm a single mom. I'm doing it without help. It's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
Because when dad does that, when he just throws in the towel, yeah, he's avoiding today's fight. But what's he telegraphing to that child? And that child, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, is going to have battles that he hasn't even thought about because he wasn't there. This is where when dad's not there for girls, they do worse in school, drug use increases, sexual activity begins sooner, they end up pregnant sooner, they end up, on the pole sooner. It's bad. And with boys, the same thing. They don't do as well in school. Drug use kicks up, criminality kicks up. They're in jails, they're in prison, they're not going to college, they're not building a solid life because they got daddy issues. And it's like, pick your battles, dude. Do you want to battle today or do you want to battle in 20 years to save your kid from doing a drug overdose because you weren't there 20 years ago? It's a hard choice. And I get it because you're just picking like which battle are you going to fight? And they do know that it's going to be hard and it's going to be ugly. And that's why they need to have the tools of like you're offering them and the tools I'm offering them with the boot camp and the online courses, and the YouTubes and the TikToks and all that stuff. Because they have to learn how to fight. Because once they know how, it'll become easier. When they actually learn how to go into court and make the arguments, they got a much better shot. And it's not nearly as scary. So I know I've got to let you go soon. Where do people reach you, and what's the best way for them to get the help you offer?
Our website, we operate virtually. It's DADS, DADS RC Resource Center. So DADSRC.org. Go to the website. Contact information is there. We have a lot of good content at our website that people can put to use also. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate you making time for me in your busy schedule. I know you're going to help a lot of dads with this, and I wish you the best.
I appreciate the opportunity, David. Thank you.
My pleasure, Jeff.